Hi, this is Robert Cavuto, and you're listening to Metal Rules. Today, we're talking with Joakim of Sabaton about their latest release, The War to End All Wars, due out on March 4th. Hi, and welcome. Well, Joakim, how are you? Welcome to Metal Rules.
Thanks for having me. I'm good. In the middle of the Scandinavian winter with waist-deep snow.
We're having in New Jersey 60-degree weather, which is an anomaly. So it's not. We chatted over the summer, right before you were supposed to play New Jersey with Judas Priest, and I was excited to see the band, but it never happened. How disappointing was it to have that tour cut short? While you were introducing yourselves to a larger audience.
Oh, I mean, we were prepared for it to end at any time, thanks to, COVID reasons. But that was we did not see that coming. And it was, luckily enough now, we know that Richie's going to be okay. Yep. But at the time, I mean, obviously worries about is he going to be all right? Because when we found out he just gotten out of surgery, it was the next day. So I don't actually remember we didn't get sort of the doctor's info. We got the management via our channels. So it was weird, actually, and especially since we thought it was such a good package. It went down well in most places, and the crowd seemed to like it every night, and we certainly loved being back on the road.
Yeah. What happened? Did you just pack up and you go home, or how does it, when you get that news, what do you do?
Yeah, that's what we wondered as well. No, we were already on our way to Denver because that was when our next show was going to happen. So we had 2 days off before the Denver show happened. We were in Kansas City when we got the news, so we had done one night's drive pretty much. And we didn't know what to do, but we just thought, let's keep on moving to Denver and think about it. And when we got to Denver, actually pretty much 24 hours before hitting the stage, we announced that we were going to do a headline show in Denver. Oh. So we played a headline show, the longest one we ever played. I think we played for like 2 hours, 40 minutes.
Oh, that's nice.
And we didn't know if anyone was going to show up, but the place seemed pretty packed to me. Ogden Theater, if I don't remember it wrong. And we had a great time. We didn't know, as we said, if people were going to show up or not, but we sort of went online and with everything we had and said, hey, we don't want the last show of our tour to be the one where Richie got, a cardiac arrest. I don't know what it was with this heart, but we just felt like, no, even if nobody else shows up, let's have a company party with boys last night out or something like that. No, but it turned out great.
That's a smart thing to do because people were planning to come anyway. So why not just go out with a big bang, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was great. I loved it.
Cool. The new CD is furious and infectious. Tell me about the band's history to pursue the war theme songs.
Oh, I think it started back in, let's say, 2003 or 4. We had a few songs about military history, but we were pretty much everywhere. It could be about general topics or mythology or whatever. But at a certain point, we thought maybe we should do an album about military history. And while we started doing that, all of a sudden, writing lyrics wasn't a necessary evil anymore, but rather fun, and exciting for us as well. Yeah. So at a certain point, we sort of just realized that, let's do another album about military history. And here we are 20 years later,
Are you a history buff, or were you a history buff before and now you're really a history buff?
I would say I had a normal interest in history before. Now I'm a nerd, but I was maybe slightly more interested than the average person in history. But I think my interest in history has grown with the band. Actually, people have this idea that we were, history buffs way before, and to a tiny degree maybe, but certainly our interest in history has grown with the band.
It reminds me of Iron Maiden too. Bruce Dickinson is you know, and yourself, a master storyteller. And I think you did a tremendous job with that, with all of the songs lyrically. Is there ever concern that some of that European history gets lost on American audiences? You know, history was never a big thing for people in school. It was always a chore. So just kind of curious.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I think when you hit it right, and it's that story where people go, what? Then it doesn't matter what nation or anything about that history. When you're lucky enough that you have the right song, you have the lyrics, you know, right, and it seems to translate anyway, no matter the culture. But certainly, I mean, there are songs that are hugely important for us to play in Finland because they're about Finnish metal history, or Poland, or you know, the United States. So, which is nice because it keeps it fresh for us. We're not playing the same songs every night, you know.
That's huge.
So I don't think actually. I think you underestimate the American crowd here in a way. I'm not saying in a bad way. But
No.
my opinion is rather that maybe it's because of the Sabaton fans. We have the people who come to our shows are already above average, you know, interested in history.
Yes.
But compared to, let's say, Swedes, I'd say Americans are way more learned on their history, especially the history where you're a part of. Yeah, possibly Americans aren't that educated on history that doesn't concern America. But, you know, every country has its own history and we can't learn it all. Not even, I mean, even professional historians have a small field of expertise, you know, looking at it, you know, from a conflict. You'd be an expert on World War I or World War II, not all of military history, you know.
Yeah, my father was a big history buff also. He was in the end of World War II and he was also in the Korean War. So we grew up hearing a lot of the stories and, you know, thank God he didn't see fighting, but he was involved with a lot of different aspects. So we have some of his military uniforms and things like that. So it's a nice keepsake and I still have all those stories. So it's interesting for me and it's interesting to hear these songs too. Because he always watched more war movies and war documentaries. So it's and listening to your song was almost like a documentary.
I'm guilty of that as well, you know.
You know, what's great too about the CD is it really doesn't glamorize war, but it shows the war in its harsh reality. Is that the intent?
Yeah, I mean, we want to tell stories from different points of views. Sometimes people connect music with not propaganda, but delivering a message. It's more normal for filmmakers to just tell a story, but music has historically been a part of, you know, spreading a message attitude. It would be religious, if you go way back, or funny bar song, or making fun of the king, you know, and then onwards, and then we get Dylan, and then we get, you know, the 60s coming on. So I think people are looking for a message, while in our case, there isn't really, you know, a message of, you know, judging right or wrong or something like that, but rather telling the stories. And sometimes we choose to tell them from the wrong point of view because it's more interesting that way.
Yeah.
And it might make you think more.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. You know, there's also a message of hope and redemption, almost like a rally cry also to these songs. And very anthemic, you know, each song is, you know, you want to raise your glass or you want to run out on the battlefield. So I really enjoy that part of it too. And that's interesting.
Yeah, we grew up, I mean, in a sense, that's one thing we all have in common in the band, even though we like different things musically, all of us have the roots back in the classic hard rock and heavy metal from the 80s. So there's a lot of that. And I mean, a lot of the musical emotions that you just described is really present in that sort of music. And yeah, we take the stories we sing about pretty serious, but we don't take ourselves serious. Yeah. So we got to have fun as well, you know.
Of course. You know, you also tend to expend an extreme amount of effort in seeking the ultimate expression in these songs. Like you said a little bit earlier, whether which side you're on, the good, the evil, or the perspective of it. What drives that artistic work, and how long does it take to write lyrics for one of these songs and portray it accurately?
Oh, that's gonna be really different depending on the song. Are we really familiar with the subject before? That can shorten the time considerably, because obviously a lot of the time isn't the writing of the lyrics, but rather the research to write the lyrics. But in general, let's say me and Pat sit down to write lyrics. I already had the idea for the song, what it was going to be about, the events. I have some notes or words that came into my head. Then the actual lyric writing could be anywhere between half a day to 2 days. For a song, you rarely half a day and rarely 2 days, if you know what I mean. Usually day and a half. But the lyric or the research could be anything between 5 hours or 5 days.
Wow, incredible. You know, and what I love too is the music follows the lyrics, which has got to be really, really hard to get it to overlap and to work. So what defines a good riff to you to write an anthemic song, and, you know, that makes you want to, that is a rally cry. So it's got to work together. You can't have one without the other in this. It's a perfect marriage for you guys.
The most important thing, I think, is that the music and the story from the way you tell it are speaking the same emotional language. Yeah. Sounds like I'm a hippie now. Sorry about that, but sometimes, I mean, in most cases, when writing music, we do know the general idea or the conflict or the battle it's about, what we don't have the lyrics yet. We rarely or almost never have lyrics before music. But in some cases, songs have been written a year before we even, or most of the song has been written maybe a year before we even know what we're going to do for the next album, just because we like writing music because it's fun. Yeah. And sometimes that song sort of gets left in the for later bin, sort of, because it doesn't match any of the stories. But then, you know, 2 years down the line, when you read about this story, you know, okay, we're making an album about World War I. Wait, and that story, The Attack of the Dead Man, that's the song me and Chris wrote like 4 or 5 years ago that we never finished. That's the one, you know.
That sounds like a hard job, just writing about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, my favorite song was Lady of the Dark. What's that one about? What's the inspiration for that one?
It's about a Serbian woman, Milunka Savic, who took her brother's place in war, basically. And it's really hard. We focused sort of the song on a lot of her exploits during World War I, but there's so much more to it. It's really tricky to decide when you come to these fantastic people who did so much over such an amount of time, and then just focus on a certain period. But I would recommend people to Google her and look her up. Milunka Savic. And Milunka is exactly as it sounds, but Savic is Southern European thing. It's Savic. And it has a funny thing above the C, but you'll get there without it.
Yeah. No, it sounds like an interesting story. So definitely now you got me hooked. I want to learn a little bit more about this person. So it's working. It's working on a New Jersey guy.
Yeah.
You have plans to tour Europe from April to August. Are you coming back to the United States anytime soon?
We're looking into it right now. Hopefully, we'll be able to announce more touring plans soon, because things are opening up. But of course, we're still waiting for final calls. And yeah, let's be honest, we're not the only ones fighting for the venues at the moment.
Yeah, I get it. Well, you know, being such a thematic and cinematic band in the music and on stage, I've seen some of your videos, your concert videos. Was there an artist that shocked you and maybe had an impact on the route you took from this theatrical approach?
I don't know, maybe not in later years, but early on, I would say Dee Snider from Twisted Sister and Twisted Sister as well. I remember, well, I don't remember. I remember my mom telling me the story. She was in the kitchen doing something. I was in the living room watching some sort of TV. We had 2 channels back in the 80s in Sweden, if you didn't have cable. And she just heard me scream. I think she was, ah, my kid is dying. So she ran into the living room. And there I was in front of the TV, freaking out. She's like looking at the TV, and there's the video for I Wanna Rock or We're Not Gonna Take It. We don't know which one it was. We don't remember. And yeah, thanks to my mom, she thought like, well, he's got a cool voice. So she bought me Stay Hungry from Twisted Sister back in, 84. So I was 3 or 4 years old, depending on when the album came out.
That's an awesome story. I growing up in New Jersey, the band was from this area, Long Island, if I'm not mistaken. And I used to go see them in the clubs back in the day before they had a record deal. And I was like 18, 19, sneaking into these clubs that were 21. And I would try and get as close as possible. And it was packed, girls wearing spandex, and it was just so much fun. And these guys were high energy, and it was awesome to witness it. So yeah, I was there.
Especially, I'm so jealous now because especially D, I think is, one of the greatest frontmen. Not taking anything away from Bruce Dickinson, Ronnie James Dio, Freddie Mercury, all of these great ones. But I think when you speak about the great frontman of, rock and roll, people usually forget Dee Snider. And I think he's up there with the best, And even seeing him at, I don't know, late 50s, early 60s towards the end, still, being in better shape than most people who are in their 20s. Yeah. And, being able to rock out with that energy output, that was super impressive.
I remember as a kid, if you went to the show and you weren't into it, he would stop the show and call you out. And everybody'd be booing you, and he'd be pointing, and he'd be making fun of you. He was so entertaining, and it was really great to watch. And I've seen them through my whole life growing up, and they're just as good all the time. They're nice guys too.
I'm getting off the track here a bit, but I have a story about he did that thing in Rockefeller, a venue in central Oslo, not too long ago. So I don't know, between 5 to 10 years ago, I don't know when, but still with Twisted Sister. And that same thing, you guys, come on, get your asses up, stand up, this is rock and roll, I want to see you bang your head. And then there was this part, and this venue is on several levels with balconies and stuff. And on one side, he could not get them to jump and dance. And he's just shouting at them, getting the rest of the crowd, come on, point to these, boo them out. And, at a certain point, I don't know how exactly it ended up, but it was actually the handicap section. He had been yelling at people in wheelchairs to get their asses up and rock and roll.
Oh my God. That is funny. Oh, that's a great story. Oh, that's crazy. I have one last question for you. I want to be respectful to your time. Now Russia is looking to invade the Ukraine. We're on the potential verge of World War III. What's your thoughts on that? And, as somebody who's a military guy, interested in military history, what's your thoughts on it?
Oh, I think you'll have to ask somebody who's smarter than me, but more importantly, somebody who's in the loop, has the intelligence, no signal intelligence, whatever, have met the people involved. That being said, I had questions along, not the same question, but along these lines in the last couple of days. And in general, though, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm not living in fear of a global conflict that will wipe humanity off the face of the earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what we're praying for. That's what we're hoping for. Nothing serious. Hopefully they can resolve this with policies and stuff like that. And that's what we want. Well, it was an honor to speak with you. It was a fascinating interview, and I really enjoyed speaking. I wish you the most success with the CD. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me,
when you come back to New Jersey, New York, I'm definitely going to come out and see you guys, because I really want. I missed the opportunity.
Yeah. Hope to see you in Jersey, man.
Yes, you will.
Thanks. Bye.